我很希望看我爸爸做陶瓷，因为我爸爸是一名很出色的陶瓷家，他做的陶瓷是6尺高的，全沙拉越最大的那种花瓶是他做的。
While making pottery, I always find peace and tranquility. Every time when I sit down in front of the wheel, throwing a pot, your hands just flow and your mind is just empty and you're just focusing on one thing, which is the pot.
We use something natural, the water, the fire, the air. Those are the things that make up our life.
In March 2022, we had an exhibition called Naked. It was divided into 3 categories. One was the prehistoric, one was the heritage, and one was the contemporary. I wanted to show the timeline of how ceramics developed along from 40,000 years ago till now. My name is Tuson Chong. I'm a local Sarawakian, born and bred in Kuching. I have always been interested in pottery and ceramics since a very young age. For the prehistoric pottery, basically the subject was covered by Dr. Franca Cole, who did her PhD on the subject.
We make a bottle or a closed pot like this. We let it dry a little bit, and then we start adding.
Hi, so I'm Dr. Franca Cole. I'm from England originally, but I've worked in Sarawak for the last 20 years. Originally, I came here to do archaeological conservation, to work at excavations in the Nia Cave with University of Leicester. And during the research that we did there, I started to get interested in the prehistoric pottery that was coming out of the Great Cave and our smaller excavations in Lobangangin and Gankira. What we have here in comparison to almost every other part of the world is that the indigenous pottery of Sarawak is handmade, and this is one of the only parts of the world that up until the 1950s the indigenous potters didn't have any access to the potter's wheel. If you look at the Philippines, they're making pots in the same shape, but they started using the potter's wheel 400, 500 years ago. In comparison, the pots that are coming out of Nia have all been made by hand. So the work I've been doing recently is a form of experimental archaeology, where I have been looking at the broken pieces that we dug out of Nia and using that understanding to try to build modern replicas using those ancient techniques. And these are the examples, or some of the examples of pots we've been working with. I would say that the double-spouted pots are probably the most iconic. These and vessels of this shape, pieces like this, probably date to about the mid-14th, 15th century AD. So a lot later than we understood.
So from there we used a PhD and we sort of replicated to show the public what beautiful works of art were actually done previously. Yeah. And for the heritage, we had master potters like Mr. Goh Ah Soon. He is a second generation potter. His works were displayed there, especially his dragon jars. They were all displayed there.
我是吴德仪，我们是沙拉越的陶瓷世家，传到这边呢，我是第3代。那第1代呢是我的祖父，从中国南下的时候，他本身在中国南部就已经是个陶瓷制作家了，就在1940年左右，然后就很凑巧，他们就靠岸到一个地方，然后就发现到，那边的陶土，那边的泥土，跟中国他们所用的陶土、粘土是差不多一样的素质所以他们就一派一派过来，然后就全部的聚集在那个地方，以他们老本行来制作陶瓷，希望说能够糊口。我们沙拉越的艺术整个风呢其实是由 图画老师来推起的。那时候我记得有一群学校的图画老师，业余的时候尝试说把本土我们沙拉约27种不一样的原住民的图案，把它 transfer 去我们的花盆。那时候80年代、90年代，我们的 Sarawak pottery 是非常出名的一个走性了哈。你每个来沙拉越的人，如果你没有买 Sarawak pottery， 你就等于没来过沙拉越。等到2000年以后，因为航空公司就开始 charge 那些 luggage， 就变成说，哎，我买了这个东西可能才20块，可能我要把它带回去的时候，我可能要还30块，你知道吗？所以就变成整个手工艺品或者那些 souvenir 的 industry 就忽然间都演变成越来越小，大家都买 T 恤回去，所以就手工艺品的这个工业就慢慢的走下坡的趋向啦。
This Iban pottery, it's really on the decline right now because the pots were actually utilitarian. They were made to be used, and because of the introduction of stainless steel, enamelware, brassware, the art slowly got forgotten because they did not need to make pots to cook. Now, this dyeing art is being picked up by Nabila Abdullah, and she studied from one of the last Iban potters in Naga Sumpah in Batang Air. So Nabila has learned the techniques and she's trying to preserve the art of making Iban pottery.
My name is Nabila Abdullah. I picked up ceramic like 17 years ago. During my younger age, I like to play with clay. I used to go to our fish pond playing with clay. Anda is an Iban man, quite a elderly person. He came from Leboantu, from a place called Nangasupa. It's about 3 hours boat ride from the Leboantu Dam.
So for the Naked exhibition, we actually planned a trip to visit this last Iban potter in Nagasumpa, Batang Air. And in the village, we followed this last Iban potter, Pak Anda, to look for clay, see him make pots, and go through the firing process.
He did brought us to his garden, and we were able to experience open firing with him.
One thing which is unique would be the resin which they extract from the trees, the local tree. It's called kayu samak. They actually pound the bark to extract the resin, dip it in water, and after the pots are being fired, they actually submerge the pots in this resin to make it semi-waterproof.
In the olden days, they use resin to make the surface of the pot kind of not that porous, so that they can cook with it, so the water doesn't seep out.
Although the trip to Batang Air, Nagasumpa was very eye-opening, but there was a little drawback. It was quite saddening to actually know that there were no local people who could continue Pak Anda's legacy as a pot maker.
He tells us that he's not really making many of the pots anymore because he has so many things to do. I am the only one left now making the Iban pottery. I keep on making until today since 2007. The Iban pottery is traditional pottery which use a lot of apparatus that we don't usually use in ceramic. They are using this kind of beds to work on the pots, and they also use a small stone, quite heavy, picked by the river bank. That's the round stones. Because if it's round, your pot will be round, and if it's oblong, your pot become oblong too. This decide the shape of your pots. And they also have some wood like this to dig a hole in the clay. And this tool is for beating, but then actually this is for stirring your rice when you cook rice, and also to scoop up rice from your pot. They are like something in the kitchen actually.
When I started this pottery studio, I actually did not have classes yet because I was very new and I needed to experiment for the glazes, for the clays and all that. It was 2018 which I started the workshop.
去年 before MCO 的时候，我有去上了 Tuson 的一堂课，上了一堂课我就觉得哇超喜欢的，因为真是很疗愈。
在我第一次上完课之后，我也觉得不错，很新鲜。我也介绍了秀梅跟我一起来 join 这个 class。偷偷开始学的时候有一点困难，因为我不懂那个技巧，所以尤其是把那个粘土你要融掉那些空气、那些技巧的时候，
我第一堂课也是从基本的揉泥土开始。
The process of making a pot from a lump of clay to a finished product actually requires a lot of time. But in a nutshell, what happens is first you have to get ready your clay. You need to wedge it. When you wedge the clay, you remove the air. From there, you can start throwing. After throwing the pot, you come up with the rough shape of the pot. That pot then needs to be dried overnight, or maybe depending on the weather as well.
这个是我的第一次做的，它是小鸟的 concept， 有点像鸟巢。
那一天的课我记得他就给我一堆的粘土，没有形状了，然后他就说你试试看，就把它做成你心中想要做的东西。我也不懂要捏什么，然后我就慢慢捏出一个形状出来，然后他看了一下，诶，这个形状蛮像大象的，你就可以把它的形状给做出来。
Then after that, the pot is fired. For the first firing, it's about 750 degrees Celsius. It's called bisque fire. After firing, the first fire, it becomes stabilized and you can dip in water, you can glaze it, it won't fall apart. After we take it out from the kiln, we tend to finish it by sanding it to remove all the sharp edges, and then we will glaze it. After glazing, we'll fire it again, the second firing, which is about 1240 degrees in my gas kiln. Yeah. Of course, there are many different types of firing based on the glaze, but for me, I tend to stick to 1240 to 60 degrees. When you're firing an item, it is bound to have an imperfection. After it's fired, you need to let it cool, and that would take probably about 24 hours to cool properly. Then you can open the kiln and take it out. If you rush the process, the thermal shock would cause the glaze to crack.
陶瓷很奇怪的，你做完之后并不代表会好。我们每次讲说 ，a pot will do wonders in the kiln， 因为在烧的时候，你不知道什么事情会发生，可能里面有一粒小沙子，好，人在烧的时候沙膨胀， 膨胀跟陶土的膨胀的规律是不一样的，它就会爆出来。
像我做的是花盆跟花，那个花是一朵一朵去做的，它的那个花瓣就是一层一层去做，所以从中那时候我做了很多失败的，所以我从在这个陶瓷我就学到没有东西是完美，我要接受那个不完美。
所以在 NTO 的时候，因为很多时间摸索，所以有一个作品我叫 The Flight of the Hornbill， 是描述一个舞者，就是一个跳舞的人，以 Hornbill 的姿态跳出一条舞，但是我把芭蕾舞的舞风联合起来一起做成一个女孩子跳起来，因为陶土是很重的东西，它不可能是飘起来的，所以那个 anti-gravity 的 effect 呢，就放了很多心思之后呢，就以一个错觉的方式呈现出来。让我怎样做呢？我就把她穿比较长的衣服，让她跳起来，衣服还是在地上，所以我就以那个很薄的衣服来支撑她上面的整个身体。然后这是第一，然后第二呢，她的身体是弯的，就一个很高雅的姿态。当时用了很多的木棍来支撑她，非常不容易。
For the contemporary, it is actually a sort of a collection of local works and a collection of where it stopped at the heritage. We are continuing to pick it up from there.
Our naked pottery exhibition managed to come up with this concept, which the concept is quite strong for the pottery exhibition, which is near theme. We were thinking, oh, maybe we should just produce a stalagmite, something that is different. One sculpture may take about 2 weeks to build one.
To develop a style is a very long process. I would say that my style is more of like very organic style. I don't preconceive what I want to make. I let my hands flow and my moods tell me what to make. So I think the style is reflected on the glazing, on the overall part. For my inspiration, I don't really look at masters or I don't look at people. I tend to look at daily objects as my inspiration, like nature objects, leaves, plants. Okay, for example, this bowl. What inspired me for the designs would be the silhouette of the local mountain range. So down here you have like Gunung Serapi, and it spreads all the way down. You can see Gunung Singai and the rest of the mountains. So things like this inspire me for the designs of the pots. Even my logo itself, because it's Sarawakian, I use all Sarawakian local materials. I use a rhinoceros hornbill as my own logo. I get inspired by local things, by natural things around me.
I always call Tuson's place a mad scientist instead of pottery studio lah. I learned more compared to where I was at school.
I was very bad in chemistry as a student, but like they always say, you learn on the job. So when I started developing the glaze is the part of the pot which makes it waterproof. Yeah, so when I was developing it, basically I have to mix everything myself because we can't buy glaze from the shops because there are no shops in Kuching. So I mix the glazes myself, and I guess people say I'm a scientist because I have to test every glaze before I let people use. So yeah, there's a lot of trial and error. Everything has to be tested. And testing a glaze is not easy because you need more than 15 hours just to come up with the result. For example, this piece, you can see the bubbling. So you know that the glaze does not fit the clay body well. means that it does not stick well, it doesn't expand and contract well, so you know that the glaze is wrong. So you need to add in more chemicals. It's all a trial and error. Although it's a mistake, but it actually is quite beautiful. So that's why I said failures or mistakes can have their own beauty as well. Dine on clay was an idea which I had. Basically, we were looking for a chef who used local ingredients to create the cuisine. Of course, I had to look quite hard and I found Achang. From then on, we sort of collaborated and we worked together in developing how the plate should look like and how the food should look like on the plates. So it was a really curated sort of dinner experience, I would say.
When it comes to plating the food, especially when it comes to using plates like Tuson's plate, where it's very special and every plate is different. I will think of a dish, then I'll look at the plate, and then from the plate I will kind of imagine or visualize the type of plating I want to be on the plate, because sometimes the color of the clay changes and every plate has a different specialty lah. Sometimes the texture of the plate, maybe if it's a round texture, I will do opposite way, or maybe I'll drizzle the sauce differently. It's very about how the two items can harmonize together lah.
我们的陶瓷厂那时候我哥哥在经营，我爸爸在经营，在90年左右吧，发生了一场火灾，虽然不是带来很大的伤害，但是最近呢，我哥哥的那个厂又多一次火灾，这一次火灾是彻底的烧成平地。这一场火灾我到现在还不太明白我还在摸索啦，可能是说一种抱怨吧，你们没有传承下去然后我就给你烧一次，给你烧得成平地，让你们反省一下，可能是一种结束，但是我是希望说是一个重生。
It's quite addictive lah, making pottery, because you play with clay and this material itself, you can mold it to your liking. You can create many things out of it. I don't have this lemon squeezer, right? So I make one for myself. I think it's a good skill to have instead of just simply buying things from the store. You get to create how you like it.
I was thinking whenever we do exhibition on the Iban pottery, we must cook rice in it. Make people know that it is able to be used, not just decoration.
how I see this pottery industry sustaining for the future from now onward, to accept it as something which is valuable, not something which is mundane and everything machine made similar. So once the awareness is there, I think people will start to enjoy using the items, the locally made items.